do I want to change anything about the angle? No, it'll be fine. Famous last words. Dun, dun, dun. Actually,
have you hit record?
I've hit record.
Oh, good.
Because I've always got to get that preamble in now. It's been juicy, the preambles. But here's something I want to do. Because I'm sick of editing our podcast and not understanding what I'm not getting about our intro. Like why I can't verbalize our intro. So we're just going to quickly...
Okay, and we're going to sing along?
Yeah. See, so that's the rhyme.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
Nuanced Naturopaths.
Oh, that's the old intro. Hang on. Okay, Jackson. Okay. Welcome to the Nuanced Naturopaths. What an intro. I am Karinda.
And I am Julie.
And we are the Nuanced Naturopaths, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And here you are. Thank you for clicking on us today, tapping on us.
Yeah.
Any preamble? Oh, yes.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
I have a confession to make.
No, it's not a secret.
No, it's not a secret. And Karinda and I have had long conversations about it. Last episode, I said the word tubercles. And Karinda said, is it tubercles? And she was really very kind and generous about it.
But I so believed you. My brain went, yeah, it is.
I learned something there. If you say it with confidence, no, it's tubercles is what I said. It's not. It's turbinates. Oh, it's turbinates. So apologies.
Yeah.
Or you're welcome if you had a little bit of a giggle.
Hopefully you had a bit of a giggle. Now,
Hope so.
And I'll apologise on my editing end where we had these grand plans we were going to have a recording of Julie saying turbinates post-production, and I was just going to put that exact same audio clip over every instance where we both said tubercles in the mouth taping podcast.
Sort of samurai style.
Right.
For anyone who remembers
Like,
samurai.
These turbinates. Like that?
Yeah. But it didn't happen.
But it didn't happen because I got to that point in editing. I'm like, I just want to get this episode out and I'm just going to make a written note. So maybe you didn't read the written note. So here's your verbal note.
Yeah.
In our last episode of mouth taping, we said something called nasal tubercles. We meant to say nasal turbinates. Mm-hmm. Interesting fun fact. When I was, because I ended up adding a link to a picture so people could visualize that anatomically, where are we talking about? What do they look like? The most Googled thing was treatments for enlarged nasal turbinates. So the problem seems to be hypertrophy. Yeah, it was like turbinate hypertrophy. So maybe that's something we can have on the radar. Yeah. Maybe if you've experienced an issue with that, because literally there were no results on the first page that were just like, oh, here's the anatomy, here's our understanding of nasal turbinates. It was all about treatments for enlarged or inflamed or swollen nasal turbinates.
Interesting.
Yeah. And there were a lot of references to surgery.
Yeah.
So,
well, there would be, wouldn't there?
Right. So let's just reiterate, like we were specifically talking about how important that infrastructure is for the production of nitric oxide in the body and how important that is for everything health. I'm going to say,
including reducing inflammation.
Right. It's like the path out is the way out is through. Yeah. You got to
something like that.
You've got to stimulate those turbinates if you want them. If they are inflamed and they need some reduction.
Yeah.
So anyway,
interesting.
That's the turbinates portion of this episode. Mm-hmm. Stay tuned for next episode where we'll certainly be addressing something that we say inaccurately in this episode.
Yeah. But this is the thing, that we're not about perfection, luckily.
Luckily.
But it's the discussion that's important. It's the questioning. It's the finding the nuance.
Yeah.
And getting a word wrong.
That's part of the journey.
It's part of the journey.
So that's that. Now today, in a very different styled episode, we are opening, this is really kind of true form of our original inspiration behind the podcast in terms of us sort of having a conversation that we would normally have and just recording it.
Yeah.
So this is something that we've touched on separately before, but this is something that was, I guess, amplified on your radar, Julie, after listening to one of my episodes on the Oh My Menses podcast called Dating and Ovulating, where I gave far too much detail about my horrendously minimal dating experiences online and my reflections of being in that realm as I was going through my menstrual cycle and sort of just mapping out the phases I was in and how that changed my behavior. So that's the gist of my episode. Links in the show note if you haven't listened to that.
I do genuinely highly recommend listening in to that episode, particularly if you are a menstruating woman, person, because Karinda has some really interesting insights, even though it was minimal. It was, well, for not very long. I think from what I know that the experience was reasonably intense, so I would want to minimize it in that way. But her insights about how she was feeling, how she was responding, the actions she was taking, I think are really, really fascinating. And gee, I wish I'd known all of this stuff way back when I was a fertile woman.
In your ovulating days.
When I was a breeder.
That language caught me off guard.
Sorry.
But I will allow it. No, that was humorous. That was great. Thank you. Thanks for saying that. And I'm glad that even as someone, I mean, I feel like there's a bit of bias there. We generally celebrate everything that the other person does. But I
guess so.
I'm grateful that even as someone who's not having that cyclical experience that I'm having, you could appreciate and find fascination in my insights and sort of the things I was noticing. So Julie had some thoughts and things that she wanted to say in response to certain parts of that episode. And I'm just wondering if there's anything I should, if there's just like dot point summaries that I should say, just in terms of real takeaways of the episode.
Yeah, I think that's if you can.
Yeah.
Just particularly about the timing and the relationship to hormone ratios.
Yeah, great. That I can do, I believe. Let's see how we go. And I'm going to be referencing the phases.
I will be testing you.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Please, I love a good test.
I've got your podcast going in my
Okay, good. And yes, so I'm going to be referring to the phases in sort of the research that I've come across since recording that episode. I've been very interested in the research that exists when it comes to attraction to mates in general, how this changes throughout the menstrual cycle, what we know about attraction to mates on hormonal birth control versus when we're just cycling naturally. I think you have a lot to contribute to the conversation, and there'll be an overlap in our thinking, I believe, in terms of women in menopause and the perimenopausal years and how attraction to mates changes there as well. So let's lay the foundation here. Essentially, the aim of the menstrual cycle, the evolutionary purpose behind the menstrual cycle is to enable a female body to get to the point of ovulation, which is the midway point of a menstrual cycle where an egg is released from one of your ovaries. When that happens, that means that there is potential for fertilization and there is potential for you to reproduce and bring a human into the world and carry on the species. Now, every time I say that, I think of all the women who are not interested in childbearing and having kids. And I just want to say that when I use that kind of language, that kind of rhetoric, I am referring to the biological drive that is fueled by hormones and neurotransmitters and is literally in our DNA to reproduce. It's just how we're wired as a species. So
because we are an animal.
we are an animal. We're an evolved animal on a planet doing the best that we can
Yeah.
with the bodies and the brains and the hormones that we have.
Yeah. And we may make different choices to what our body wants.
Yes.
And
exactly.
that's okay.
Exactly. And sometimes we might make different choices to what our brain or mind wants based on what our body is convincing our brain we should be doing, even if it's not rational. And that's definitely relevant to this conversation. So the first half of your menstrual cycle, so from your period up until the point before ovulation, pretty much steadily there is a rise in estrogen, and the point of that is to stimulate your ovaries, stimulate the follicles within your ovaries, to stimulate and develop the egg cells. A few follicles each month will get to a point of maturation where they can sort of go to the next stage of getting even closer to ovulation. Then ovulation comes, we reach the peak of our hormones. There's a peak in estrogen, there's a peak in testosterone. But the hormone that sort of pulls the trigger for ovulation is a brain hormone, luteinizing hormone. So that surges, and that's what causes the release of an egg. And so I like to put that as a reminder as well, just in terms of your sex hormones can be doing a lot sort of in the downstairs department, in the ovarian department, but it's always going to come back to the brain. And that's where stress in the nervous system plays a huge role in hormone health, but also fertility. So ovulation happens, and then estrogen sort of like tapers off a bit, but stays at a moderate level. But because of ovulation, we then get a surge of another hormone called progesterone. And progesterone and estrogen are kind of like sisterly, cousinly hormones. In some ways they work together, but in other ways they kind of oppose each other. They're both needed. And progesterone gets you thinking in a very, very different way, because the point of progesterone is to prepare your body for a potential pregnancy. Again, even if rationally you're like, that is not what we're interested in, that is the primal function of that hormone, to prepare your uterus and your entire body to develop life. And then if 2 weeks after ovulation, your body clocks like, oh, no, there has been no fertilization that has occurred. We cannot sustain this level of progesterone. We cannot sustain this level of estrogen. The hormones drop off, and that's what causes your bleed, and a cycle starts anew. So that's where we're at in terms of a cycle summary. Any questions?
Beautifully explained. I really enjoyed that. So would you say that ovulation is the main event?
I would say that, and I think I have been known to say. Are you quoting me?
No, I just thought that was an important thing to draw a line under.
And it really is. It's what divides your. I mean, if we're talking about cycle tracking and tuning into these different phases, ovulation is the thing that divides your cycle in half. We've got pre-ovulation, we've got post-ovulation. And it's the thing that's going to be responsible for the most hormonal fluctuations that you will have. So culturally, we've sort of associated our periods with being hormonal, and that's the most obvious thing, right? It's blood coming out of us, but we're not quite dying, and it's and it's still taboo, but it needs management. It's the biggest thing, but really physiologically, the point of the menstrual cycle is this more subtle, more invisible event of ovulation.
Which is why, and we'll get to that later, that hormonal contraception that suppresses ovulation could then impact the way that you're thinking because of those hormone changes.
Absolutely, yeah. If your behaviour is driven by these hormonal surges and fluctuations, and let me emphasise the point that these two hormones, estrogen and progesterone, have a huge impact on your brain. If we're not getting those surges and fluctuations, your behavior and your thinking is going to be different if your brain isn't getting that same stimulation, right? So, yeah, that's a really good point. And interestingly, just because we've spoken about ovulation being the main event, that's how you can reproduce. Ovulation is the key to conception. I've been reading a lot of old literature. I had 20 tabs open on my phone at one point of just reading all the old-timey texts there were about menstruation. This was fascinating. We need to talk about this off air as well. This is so fascinating. Oh, I found like a paper, like in a very old Australian like medical journal, and they're talking about, they're uncovering the mystery of the woman's courses, and because that's what they would call it, and talking about, the mystical myths, I guess, that the what do I want to call them? What's the word? Old wives' tales about the risks of menstruation, and it was just this unknown thing. And I think I'm going to say Hippocrates. I don't know that it's Hippocrates, but in the old medical texts, they actually believed that it was menstruation that was a key to fertility. It was menstruation. They thought it was a mixture of semen and menstrual blood that grew life.
Right. Oh, I can understand that.
Right, and that was the thing that was obvious. Yeah. So there's there's a lot of history to it. Anyway, that's a bit off topic.
And this is going back when they thought that hysteria was because a woman's uterus roamed around the body
and wreaked havoc in all the different organs, and like they literally thought the uterus was just this wandering thing, just fucking hopping about the body and ridiculous.
Well, that's why you should do more research on women if you want to know about women.
Yeah, our bodies are here. Please study us. So that's that summary.
That is a good amount of context. Were you going to just give some key points about the highlights of your podcast?
Oh, sure I could. Hey, Karinda, roll the clip. No.
Because I do believe that I said I was testing you on this, with your podcast going in my ear, in my imagination. No, it's just...
Well, I'm curious, is there something in mind? Is there a takeaway point that you want to emphasise?
Well, I'm thinking, okay, so the first point that really sparked a response in me, and I was walking down the street, but I so wanted to have a conversation with Karinda, but I also wanted to listen to more of the podcast. So I was really torn. I didn't end up sending you any messenger messages, which is how we normally converse all day long.
Yeah.
But the first point was that you had drawn some conclusions about how you had responded to, I can't remember what it was, whether it was you'd made contact with somebody, you'd instigated contact, and also you'd responded to the responses that you'd got. And you speculated on how you may have made different choices at different times of your cycle.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting because I was reflecting on how that change in hormone levels, so the withdrawal of progesterone and estrogen at particular times of the cycle correlates with late perimenopause and menopausal women in particular, and how we make different choices based on a number of different factors. If we're seeking a partner, past perimenopause, and so it made me wonder whether that was in part because of the hormone changes, but also because of the neurological rewiring that occurs during perimenopause and that was then in place during menopause. And I just thought it was really, really fascinating because I've had so many patients, women during this period of time, who have really had a lot of sort of I don't want to say existential crisis, because I don't know that it's necessarily a crisis, but certainly a lot of existential questions about, so what about the rest of my life? What about this relationship that I'm in at this moment? Is it still serving me?
Yeah.
And I think it's important for women to know that it's okay to be thinking these thoughts.
Yes.
Because it's not necessarily, you're just bored, or, however somebody else might want to minimize it. These are real thoughts that are occurring because you are in a phase of your life where your priorities and your values are changing because of your hormone changes and because of this rewiring of the brain.
Absolutely.
For this non-fertile part of your life.
Absolutely. And that is, I have a lot to say on that.
Go.
Okay. So that, to me, like straight off the bat, I definitely correlate that a little bit with you can almost overlay that time of our life with the luteal phase of the menstrual cycle.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Right. So that's, even though there's a lot of hormones at play in the luteal phase. So that's, the luteal phase is after ovulation and before your next period. We've got progesterone there. We've got estrogen there. You don't necessarily have that in the postmenopausal woman. We know that there's going to be fluctuations if you're in perimenopause, but there's definitely an overlapping theme there. And so I want to acknowledge that first, and we will get into that. And okay, so I'm going to zoom into the menstrual cycle, and then I'm going to zoom out and go back to the menopause, the menopausal picture. So first I'll talk about my experience, and then I'll talk about what I learned from the research and how it links. So I'll start off with ovulation. Again, like I said, we've got our peak of estrogen. My brain in that mode is, it is just seeking. Estrogen potentiates dopamine. So that reward circuitry in your brain is literally more sensitive than any other time in your cycle, sort of in the week leading up to ovulation and right around ovulation. Dopamine's more sensitive, so there may be more messaging or seeking mates. And there's also this effect of like rose-colored glasses. Like if my primal brain is like, the goal is to find someone to mate with, I'm not looking at red flags in terms of personality traits, or would this person be a good long-term companion? Would this person be a good father for my children? That's out the window. In the luteal phase, however, things start to change, and you're, especially because of progesterone, who's in this kind of baby preparation mode, it's now assessing your environment, assessing your choice in partner, assessing your options and going, well, hang on, is this suitable for the child that we're going to bring in? Is this environment safe enough to raise a child in? Is this partner going to be a good partner? And it will be looking at the issues. And this is, honestly, I think this is why PMS exists.
Yeah.
Progesterone helps your brain look for the problems in your life.
Yeah.
Because it is wanting to create a safe environment to potentially bring a baby into. So that's really interesting. Now, research-wise, there's actually a term for this, and I'm going to be super loosey-goosey. I don't want to get lost in the weeds of the specifics, but I can absolutely, I've got the tabs open, and I can absolutely link the raw data in the show notes. They actually used a term to describe the fact that human females will seek sex in their fertile window of a menstrual cycle, but it's like a research term that, human females seek sex also when they're not in their fertile window, when they don't have a chance of falling pregnant. And I think they referred to that as dual sexuality.
Yes, I think
it's ringing a bell.
It's ringing a bell.
Something's happening.
Maybe I read, or maybe you shared it with me. It's possible.
There's something there.
Yeah.
So they found that, through experiments that we've referenced before, the t-shirt smelling experiment, then there was another one where they showed pictures of faces of the same male to female heterosexual participants. But one picture was like maybe 50% more feminized, and the other picture was more like 50% more masculinized. And there's been a few similar experiments and genetic testing done. What they found is that when you are closer to ovulation, your mate-seeking behaviour is driven based on genetics. You'll be more attracted, if you're a heterosexual female, you'll be more attracted to more masculine figures.
Yeah.
The thing that we spoke about the MHC complex compatibility,
Yep.
you're more likely to be attracted to people and want to mate with people that have the opposing. That's how it works, right? With the
opposite immune profile.
Yes, so that you get
To
theoretically stronger genes
Yeah.
rather than, I don't know, I just find the easiest way to think about it, you know, we think of the cultures where there was a lot of inbreeding or like mating with the same family lines to keep the blood pure, but you would get all these genetic
Yep. Snips, genetic snips.
that weren't conducive to healthy, optimal
Yeah.
human bodies. Let's put that succinctly.
Which is actually slightly different to immune profile, but has a bearing on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Well, because your genetic profile dictates some of your immune profile.
Right.
But not only.
Dictates a lot of other things as well. Yeah. So theoretically attracted to people around ovulation who will be a good genetic compatibility and immune system compatibility in terms of opposing immune systems. I'm using very loose language here.
I think
that's okay.
Fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Getting defensive to myself. Whereas the people that you're attracted to in the luteal phase, so you've ovulated, the opportunity for conception is done for at least a few weeks, but human females still seek sex at this time. Who are they driven to at this time? They're driven to what they called, I forget the exact terminology, but it was about resources. It was about companionship.
Right.
So what was interesting was that around ovulation, it was like, what will make the best child? What will make the healthiest, strongest offspring?
Yeah.
Mate seeking in the luteal phase reflected who will make the best father.
So when in the cycle do we seek the bad boy?
I think that would be closer to ovulation. Yeah.
Because the bad boy really reflects the dominant male,
Yes,
who will protect us, right?
Oh no! See, I'm not sure I would even draw conclusions about that because evolutionarily, the dominant male is happy to go off and breed with other women and isn't going to be a loyal partner.
Yeah.
And again, we're crossing wires in terms of culture and history and DNA. So, like, if you're like, are you talking about like the alpha male?
Maybe. I'm just thinking, that the bad boy is often, that's where a lot of women go wrong. In their relationships.
Yeah.
Because what they're attracted to is not necessarily what is going to make a good parent or husband.
So he's strong and he's masculine, but he's not necessarily using that strength to protect the family unit.
Yeah.
So I think perhaps there's an interpretation of like we see that strength and we see that masculinity and our estrogen juiced up brain is like, he'll keep me safe.
Yeah.
But we know too many stories of where we, like you said, where we go wrong and where we pick maybe partners for the wrong reason. And that doesn't end up being the case. And a lot of this part of the conversation is very theory based. We are just spitballing ideas and opinions here.
Yeah.
So luteal phase was all about who has the most resources, who will father my children. And they talk about in other species how I think some ape species, maybe, they were talking about how in some it's a totally normal thing for the female to bear children with other men, but the family unit will be men. with males, but the family unit will be a male who's not actually the father of those children, but has the resources or has the qualities where he will stick around. Yeah.
Right.
And then there's other ones where there's a male and he'll go around sleeping with. I'm talking about apes.
The player.
The player ape of the group. He'll go around to different females, mate with all of them, but will protect all of them against being fertilized by any other males.
Yeah.
So there's this, it's...
Well, because we've got different objectives, don't we?
Yeah.
Because we have such a big investment in carrying a child and then raising a child, because our babies are born with enormous heads. So, part of the gestation is outside of the body, and we have to look after them for a long period of time until they can walk and feed themselves. And so it's necessary to have assistance with that.
Yes.
And that comes from a male. Also comes from the grandmothers,
The menopausal women in the community.
menopausal women in the community who are often the midwives and the. I think we've both read the same book, Eve. That talks about midwifery and the practices around caring for women giving birth and pregnancy and even breastfeeding and raising children. How necessary it is to have this support structure for the community to be strong, for those offspring to survive.
And I think that really stood out. It's funny how they had to research that. But because in so many other species, if you're a female and you're no longer in your fertile years, you're deemed useless. And so obviously humans are very distinct from that, where it's we have very, very old women who have long past their menstruating and ovulating years. But here they are, why do we have such a long lifespan? And so it's, I don't know, it just feels so nice and validating of not that we needed the research to validate older, beautiful women in our society, but the research is there to be these are a really important community unit. This group of women actually enable raising of the next generation. They're helping to continue the race and the species by offering resources to the group. Whereas if they weren't there, imagine how many parents and families would be under-resourced if they didn't have grandparents. They didn't have grandmothers.
Also, when we were talking about women who ovulation and choices about what they do or don't want to do in their lives, whether they want to have children or not have children, grandmothers equally are contractually obliged.
Yes.
Because there are grandmothers that don't necessarily want to do that. But these are the choices we can make in this society, but we can still understand the value of the grandmother and the older woman, the matriarch, and, as knowledge holders and assisters of the community.
Yes, absolutely. And I do love that research has come out. It's funny that it was needed, but I love that it's there.
Yeah.
I do.
Just going back to your point about the male that goes around and fertilises many of the women. I was watching a documentary many, many years ago about a community of meerkats. Cute little things they are. And so I think there was one male, and he had a little harem of lovely little lady meerkats who clearly adored him. But when his back was turned, they were kind of looking behind the bushes on the outskirts, and there was a younger male who was, trying to mate with basically any of them. And the funny thing was that when the dominant male turned his back, they raced off behind the bushes and had sex with this this intruder.
Yeah.
And they talked about that actually strengthening the gene pool by having this aberration. So it's that makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because if you've got all of the females all breeding with only one male,
Yep.
you're not broadening the gene pool.
Right.
And
Even if he's the genetically strongest
the
individual.
one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And he's also a lot of others ones, okay, girl?
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
Yeah.
I like that reasoning also because, yes, in the research paper that I'm currently going through, they also mention that phenomenon of the females, when there was an opportunity, the females going off. And I forget, they were talking about it in like some kind of like social context in terms of the males, the dominant male doesn't know if they've done that. So
No.
there's almost a strength in like that male will keep coming back for that woman and maybe supporting the family, even though he's going to other females as well. But the female's getting other needs met by being able to, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, so clearly my brain isn't solid on the research, but this is a thing that we're noticing in nature that's happening. And I like your highlighting of the function of that, broadening the gene pool. Because, it's not conducive to a society if it was just one man impregnating all the females. Yeah.
And I like this paper that you've brought up because it highlights that women enjoy sex too.
Yeah.
What a surprise!
Yeah. Dun, dun, dun. Break it.
It's
This just in.
And that is unusual for our species do that, and other species seek sex, but not all animals do that.
No.
Some animals are only interested in sex. I think about alpacas, where the alpaca, I think, will lay down, will sort of hunch down on the ground if she's fertile and ready to mate.
Yeah.
Otherwise, she's like, screw you, buddy, I'm going to spit green snot on you. Because that's what they do.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
They're very spitty, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're pretty unique in that way.
So earlier you mentioned safety in the environment, food security is another aspect of safety that we're assessing for, which is why some women can end up with hypothalamic amenorrhea. So not ovulating because they're not eating enough, essentially. And I was thinking how in menopause we assess safety differently. We are naturally making different calculations.
Yeah.
And because we're not, with the neurological wiring, we have, first of all, different priorities.
Yeah. The major one being you're not driven to partners or people for the sake of reproduction.
Yeah.
Because that phase of life is done.
It's done.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And so that also changes our values and our, what am I saying? The end result is that we give no fucks.
Yeah.
Aside from sex, we give no fucks. And so that changes the way that we respond within a relationship.
Yep.
It's not that we don't care. It's just that we care slightly less about other people and slightly more about ourselves. It's just that the drive for nurturing has been turned down a little bit. That lever's turned down.
Yeah.
And so that can change the way that we respond in a relationship and how other people respond to us.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, they would they might say she's more angry or less tolerant, or and you know that can be a thing that changes the dynamic. The other factor is that we are not seen in the same way by men. And I know this makes a lot of women sad. It also makes a lot of women happy that you're not being looked at as a sexual object.
There's a kind of freedom.
There is a freedom.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so that invisibility, it is freeing. And it also means that you're looking more for a partner that is aligned with your values and your interests. Somebody, you might be more inclined to find somebody that, wants to travel, wants to tick off things on your bucket list, or I don't know, take up skydiving or whatever it is, than in earlier life when you were seeking somebody who would be a good father or a good partner when raising children. So, an entirely different set of requirements. And there's nothing to say that the current partner that you have doesn't evolve into that. I mean, men do go through an andropause as well.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there are, one day we might find the research on that, to see what sort of changes occur for them in terms of their priorities.
Yeah. And I've also heard it reflected by some women in postmenopause with their similarly aged male partners, that they notice a softening in them. They notice more. I think something does happen with oxytocin in men as they age. And I guess just with a natural reduction in testosterone, there's going to be less of that dominating or competitive behaviour, and there's going to be more desire to bond and to feel safe in a different way. Safety in having a solid, loyal partner, and maybe nurturing that, I think, can become their priority. But overall, to sort of reflect on everything you said, I guess the menstruating and ovulating and the fertile years are this reflection of giving your energy to others, seeking partnerships and companions and mates for a lot of hormonal reasons, a lot of hormonally driven reasons. And then if you do have children, you're giving your energy to your children. And menopause becomes this, and I mean, obviously this is a whole separate conversation in and of itself, but menopause becomes this beautiful time of the lens and the energy gets reflected back into you. And I guess to add to your point, just of validating that it's okay if you are going through this phase of life and you're starting to question your relationships, you're starting to question your marriage, your long-term partnerships, or your role in your children's lives, or your career, or
your friendships as well. Your friendship groups can be affected as well.
Friendships, and even just life goals. It's may we just offer this sort of piece of biological validation of biologically and physiologically it makes sense that these are the things you are thinking about. It doesn't mean that there's a mental illness happening and that's why you're thinking these thoughts, or that you're just trying to be dramatic and make a mountain out of a molehill. No. There's hormonal happenings that are affecting how your brain is wired and how your brain perceives the world, and it's perfectly natural and I would say necessary for the evolution of females across a whole generation. And we wouldn't have the wise women of our society without menopause.
Absolutely. And there are some beautiful things that come along with that, things like, enhanced intuition.
And I think postmenopausal women have a different vantage point of how they see things.
Yeah.
They're not being driven by will someone want to impregnate me? They get to...
Oh, yeah. So that goes back to the safety thing too.
Yep.
So that we're not at the same risk as of being impregnated against our will, whatever form that takes, because of this sort of becoming a little bit invisible or being seen differently is probably a nicer way to say it.
So are you saying that there's this new level of there's this perhaps a new level of safety, or a kind of safety and freedom that doesn't exist in the ovulating years, that maybe then allows a woman to explore other opportunities in life, or step outside her comfort zone in a way that's aligned with her values and maybe aligned with her dreams and life goals that maybe she felt hindered from or limited in exploring previously.
Yeah. I don't think it's until you get to this stage that you realise just how much of your life, your behaviours, your goals, your everything that you do is structured around this biological need to mate.
Yeah. Yep. It really permeates everything.
It does.
It permeates all our decision making. And one of my goals as a naturopath who works with people wanting to balance their hormones or wanting to support their fertility, and also as a menstrual cycle educator, I love this stuff. And I think I mentioned this in the podcast episode too. This cycle is going to happen. This is just this life cycle of like going through puberty and then having our fertile years and then transitioning into menopause, and the menstrual cycle is going to happen, right? I would rather understand how it's going to impact my brain and my behaviors and my decision making to sort of embrace it and leverage the strengths and gifts that exist within it, rather than numb it or go, oh, this thing that, blah, blah, you know. I would rather lean in, steer into the skid, and then let it support me, let it help me understand my life and my motives a bit better, rather than this thing of like, oh, I need to escape this bodily thing that is holding me back, you know?
Which is as ridiculous as wearing your bathers in winter and going, summer's not happening.
Yeah.
The cycle is not happening.
Yeah. You can't deny it.
Yeah.
It will pull you back in one way or another.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing from the research, and I'm going to speed round this, is that men are more attracted to women when they're ovulating.
Oh, you shared that. That was, yes.
Yep.
Yes. Well, you've got to say that.
Okay, well, I've said it.
No. But specifically, what the research was based on.
Oh, I should.
Yeah.
Okay. They researched lap dancers who make money from tips at a club where that happens. Words that are unnecessary to say.
A gentleman's establishment.
And they found that on average, an ovulating female makes $20 more per hour of a shift. Yeah, when she's ovulating, compared to other phases in her menstrual cycle, and compared to females who are on hormonal birth control and therefore aren't cycling and aren't ovulating. She made the least amount of money when she was menstruating, and she made the second least amount of money when she was premenstrual. The most amount of money when ovulating.
Did they look at how menstruation affected their ability to work?
No.
That wasn't part of the research?
No.
Because I'd like to know how that would skew that data.
Me too. Did it take into account, the answer is no, but did it take into account that a female may be putting more effort into being attractive to the male gaze, being attractive from a male perspective when she's ovulating, because that's her primal drive? So is she wearing different perfume or wearing more makeup or wearing different clothes to appear more attractive subconsciously? You know, again, this is all happening on a biological level. Did they account for that? No. But I think there were other studies that somehow demonstrated that males are generally more attracted to females who are ovulating because of subtle changes in the voice, subtle changes in the symmetry of our faces. Yeah. And we've got to leave it there.
But perhaps we'll need to do a part 2.
I think we will, yeah. And this might be nice maybe we can steer more into the fun research, and we can talk about the T-shirt study and what we know about hormonal birth control and attraction, and yeah, maybe we can lean away from my podcast and steer more into the research.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds like fun.
sounds good.
Cool.
Thanks for listening, guys. If you have questions, let us know the questions. If this brought up anything for you, give us more content to riff off of. Give us questions that we can riff on.
Feedback.
Yeah. Feedback.
Like us.
Like us, follow us, subscribe on YouTube.
All the stuff.
All of that.
Bye.
Bye.